Hello and welcome to Triathlonology, a triathlon podcast by Animis racing team. I'm Oliver.
And I'm Jacqui. We are a mum and son coaching team who have changed our lives through the sport of triathlon.
Our podcast aims to break down the mysteries of triathlon training and show you, the listener, how simple and flexible it can be so that it really does become part of your lifestyle and not just a hobby. Hello and welcome to another episode of Triathlonology, a podcast by Animis racing team.
I'm Coach Jacqui.
And I'm Coach Oliver, and together we're a mum and son coaching team from North Lincolnshire and South Yorkshire, dispensing our no-nonsense Yorkshire-style advice for all things triathlon. It has been some time since we did a triathlon. It's been 3 weeks now since we last recorded a podcast.
Yeah, and you're still alive.
Yes, well, people know that because I were on holiday last
Yes, but they don't know whether you were like, you'd had a turn for worst. You never know.
No turn for worst. I safely made it home from Turkey, and we have been and done our autumn tune-up event in Portugal, haven't we? Which was very good.
Yeah, really good. Weather. Yeah, I mean, first time we've been really, and it's been a bit iffy.
Lashing it down.
Yeah, real lashing.
Like, rodding it down. I don't know, if you were a non-English listener, how would we describe it? Other than, like, raining cats and dogs.
Yeah, Evans opened.
Biblical. Yeah. It were biblical rain and wind.
Not all the time.
Not all, but like when it came. And well, we got text messages from Portuguese government saying it is going to be very rainy and windy. Yeah. Be careful, more or less. But when it does chuck it down like that there for a prolonged period of time, and it might only be for half an hour rather than a few minutes as a shower, because the sand blows onto the road and it's hot most of the time, it sort of sets, and then when the rain lands on it, it just becomes like an ice rink. Footpaths, roads all become an ice rink, and it makes it really, really challenging to be able to deliver any kind of safe session outside.
Yeah, but we only missed one session.
One session because we adapted.
Because that's what we do. We're proper coaches. We adapt to circumstances and to athletes.
And things beyond our control.
Yes, because the thing is, we don't just walk the walk. We walk the walk. We have probably coached. There are very few coaches, I would say, that have got as much in-person experience as Oliver and I. And it really naffs me off when you see people going, oh, I've got this person to corner, and I've done this, and I'm going to corner, and I'm doing this, that, and other. No, you're just a professional athlete living off your reputation as an athlete, yeah,
rather than a coach. Because as we said before, coaching is very different.
Yeah.
I mean, you only have to look at the Premier League,
absolutely,
from a football point of view, to see like the coaches who are, with the exception of Pep Guardiola, who are towards the top of the league, are players who weren't very good or are actual coaches. Even Brighton's manager, younger than me, just been a coach all his career.
Yeah, like Danny Roll.
Yeah.
If you don't know who Danny Roll is, look him up.
Yes.
So
overall, it was it was a welcome experience. It's nice to get back to Portugal, even if the weather was rubbish, and we are very much looking forward to our planning few days in January, aren't we? And then going for our week-long trip in April, where we've already got people signed up for coming.
Yes, we have, because our reputation precedes us.
But I'm going to do an advert here.
Go for it.
If you would like to join us on our week away in April, then you can do. And bonus, you can pay weekly. So you can pay from between £20 a week, I think it is, if you sign up now, to get you through to when we go in April, which is basically 2 visits to Starbucks.
Yeah, because I've got to say, Oliver, when we went to a football match on Saturday and I paid for the coffees, it cost me £19.40.
4 coffees.
4 coffees.
So yeah, 4 coffees that cost a week, or if you and a friend twice, you can come on our triathlon holiday.
And have a fab time.
And
learn lots and lots of stuff.
Well, hopefully the weather will be a lot nicer.
Yeah, it should be.
But turning to today's topic of conversation, which is going to be managing the off-season.
Because we are in the Northern Hemisphere, and we are going into winter. Rapidly going into winter, where it's horrible.
Unless you're in Southern Europe, in which case it's not going into winter at all.
No, it's not, but
it is here.
It is here.
And so typically you normally get athletes in one of 3 camps, don't you?
Yeah.
Where athletes who've done a load in the summer, not necessarily coached by us, but other athletes who've done a lot or too much and have pushed the boundaries of everything else. So like work's been a bit stretched, the family life's been a bit stretched, and then they get to the end of the season and think, right, I'm having some time off so that I can fix all the problems that I've created by doing triathlon.
Yeah, because like I need to make up with my wife or my husband and make sure that my kids now recognise me, and I've still got a job.
Yeah, and for them, like, they're not doing another raid till May, June next year, so they don't have. What's the point? They can take some time off now, probably several months off now, and not have to worry about it because they'll just start again and repeat the same cycle. Or you get some athletes that just think, I don't want to train in the winter. I'm just going to do it in the spring when the weather's nice, and then I'll come back at that point, and again, fine. But you're missing out, as we'll come to in the context of this conversation. And the third group of athletes, which is getting fewer, are those who train with you all year round.
Yeah.
Because, as we've said before, the off-season is a period in which we can really make a difference to your next season, because you are just training, broken up by a few events, like we've said to Kelly and Drew this week, haven't we? And say, you need to pick some
races
like 10Ks, to do it like in late autumn, early spring. So it's something to train towards rather than just training for an event that might happen until May. You're giving yourself a little stop off. But yeah, most people tend to stop.
And full stop doing anything, which is not really a good idea.
I mean, some of them are psychologically burnt out with the amount of effort that they put in. But again, it boils down to the balance of the year not being quite right.
Yeah, because that's not how we coach. Anyway, to be honest, is it? It's not how we done. Yeah. We're not. What's the word I'm looking for?
We're holistic.
Yeah, we appreciate that people have got a life outside triathlon, and we try them as much as possible, do the balancing act, so that you've not fallen out with your wife and your kids, you've still got a job and you enjoy doing what you're doing. And the main thing is that you enjoy it.
Yeah. And so if you are in camps 1 or 2, where you either have done too much and you need to repair yourself, or your relationships with various other people, or in camp 2 where you've not considered triathlon all year round before because you've just done it in the winter and maybe don't get the results or the increases in performance that you expected, then there is a way to train through the winter that will be worthwhile and will build you up over basically secret training for the people who are exactly like you and aren't doing it.
Yeah.
And if you're a bit unsure, well, what have you got to lose by experimenting for a year?
Yeah.
If you do it this year and see how your results go next year, well, if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. But in the vast majority of cases, it definitely will do. Yeah,
you will make significant improvements in less time than what you think.
It's about that invested in yourself and what do compound gains? That's what they call it in finance, isn't it? Yeah. So in like a pension, you might put £500 in a month, let's say, from your workplace pension, but then that gets invested on top of every month, and so the next month you've got £1,000 in your pot, so you get interest or investments on £1,000 rather than on £500. So that's called a compound gain, because you're just adding to it all the time, and the interest or investment amount
it's like a bookie, something really. You're filling your bookie up.
Yes, but you are, every time you add a bit more, you're compounding the gain to make it bigger on an overall scale. So that's what you should think of the off season as being, a chance to make some compound gains, and also maybe get a bit of a different perspective on triathlon training, so you don't have to quite do as much in the summer, and you don't end up in this vicious circle where you burn all your matches through the spring and the summer, and in terms of mental, physical health, relationships, work, and then have to repair it in the winter when you don't necessarily want to.
And it's also a time where you can, if you've got a particular weakness, you can work on that. So, for example, if you are not a very strong swimmer, you could have a swim stimulus, and we could get you training to an not so much training, but what's what I'm looking for. You can increase your weekly kilometres. You can work on the technique a little bit, although mainly for swimming, it's about volume. I know people say, oh, you've got to do your doggy paddle and and your catch up drill. Well, I've never seen anybody do that in a triathlon. Have you?
No, and most people don't benefit from doing it anyway.
No, because they don't swim enough.
Well, and because you're not good enough.
No, you're not good enough.
Sorry. Most swimmers, most triathletes who swim are not good enough to get any benefit from the drill that they're doing.
No,
you'd be much better off swimming and getting fit and having a poorer technique than having the best technique in the world but not being able to swim.
Yeah, and it gets to race day and you've had it halfway round.
But this sort of like blends into the consistency thing that we're always preaching, and how it's an important part of across the season, because off season really is that continuing inconsistency, particularly if you've had a really good spring and summer race season, then you can continue making those compound gains with consistency off the season. And you can do it under the radar really, because you don't have to do huge amounts, particularly in the way that we coach with the reverse periodisation. It's more about shorter, more intense efforts in the winter rather than longer stuff. So in the traditional periodisation model, you might do base building, so long rides, long runs, long swims and what have you. Whereas
running 14 miles on a Wednesday night.
Yeah, whereas when we do reverse periodisation with our athletes, it's more sharp and intense stuff, less time. Still a bit of volume there, but not a large amount, because in reverse periodisation your training becomes more like your events the closer to your event you get. So in the winter, particularly for Northern Hemisphere people, where it's snowy, cold, rainy, windy, very cold depending on whereabouts in the Northern Hemisphere you live, doing reverse periodisation is much more attuned to your lifestyle, because you can go into the garage or go into the gym for an hour, get a session done. That's you done. You don't have to go riding, if you're in America, in minus 10 degrees outside for 2 hours to build your base, or if you're in like England at the weekend when it was Storm Ashley, lashing it down, blowing a gale, so even like big jet TV were taking pictures of planes trying to land. If you can't land a 747 at wind on a runway, should you be out on your bag? Or would you be better off in garage on a turbo? I know what I'd say.
Yeah, I know what I'd say as well.
And it really gives you a positive, and training in the off season in the way that, however you do it, but particularly in the way that we do it, really gives you a balance and a foundation for you to build on when you get to your earlier races, like in April or May, because you're not suddenly like
playing catch up, are you?
Yeah, or you just think, well, I'll start after Christmas. Okay, well, if you finish now, that's October, November, December gone. So 15 weeks, 12 weeks that you've like knackered off. Then you think, well, I'll start after Christmas, but then something will happen, and you think, oh, wait, start in February. And
I think, I don't know that and getting my training gear because I put all that weight on.
But you're getting closer to your race, closer to your event, without us doing as much preparation for it as you might have, and so you can make you be a bit worried about it too much and a bit stressed about the event coming up, and then you panic train and get injured or ill. Whereas
and then you then back to square one.
Whereas applying a little bit of training now in the off season will cumulatively build up to allow a nice gentle progression through the off season into race season, where you'll then be able to maintain it, rather than doing nothing and then having to put everything on black at the roulette table to get you to your result, and then you're really risking whether you're going to be able to get there or not. So again, what sort of hours are you looking at if you're doing training in the winter? Well, let's say that you are a middle distance triathlete, similar to myself when I was particularly training at a consistent level, a higher consistent level than I am doing now, and I'd maybe average between 12 and 14 hours a week. What would my winter training look like then? Well, probably about 7.
Yeah.
7 hours a weekish, like a session, or maybe 10, maybe some weeks, but like go for a swim, a run, a bike every other day, like in that kind of order, or maybe a longer bike on a Sunday, 90 minutes on my turbo or whatever, or an hour's run on a Saturday. To get hours, it's about putting a bit, so you can just ticking yourself over really and building it up gently.
Putting a bit of speed into things. Maybe,
yeah. And then as you get closer to race season, you can start adding on a couple of hours or over the course of a month. So you're not going all of a sudden from doing nothing to doing 14 hours. You might be going from 7 to jumping to 9 to 11 to 14 as you're going through into late spring, which is really helpful for you to avoid illness, really helpful for you to avoid injury. You'll also, your muscles and tendons will be stronger from doing that and building yourself up slowly. And you are, to quote Richard Sennett, which I never thought I would do on this podcast. Yeah. So Richard Sennett was our PE teacher when I was at North Axon School. And he used to, we talked about something called oxygen debt, which he described as like filling up your car with petrol and then running out. But in a similar sort of analogy, if you fill up your car with petrol and then eventually it'll run out, but the off season is your chance to increase your petrol tank. So even if you increase it by 5%, you're going to get a lot more miles out in the summer when you're wanting to go on it, rather than just going, yeah, I'm having petrol tank to my petrol tank. Because when you start back in the spring, your petrol tank will have decreased.
Might even be on empty.
Well, yeah, take it from somebody who knows. When you have a long time off due to illness or injury, you are not the same athlete when you come back.
You are not.
And it takes time to build it up. So if you voluntarily decide to stop training, then you are lowering your petrol tank volume. And then you really, so in order to make any progress next year, you've then got to train enough to get it back to where you were when you stopped, and then increase it. So even if you just tick yourself over with 5 hours, 6 hours a week training in the winter, that's good to maintain where you are, and then the spring will bring you on. Even if you don't want to do so. But from my point of view, much better to increase the petrol tank slightly now, and then increase it later on, because you are just building it up and getting the consistency over the time. It's difficult, as we've said, when it's about other people training, to have, what is your motivation for doing the training in the winter? Because there's no races for 6 months or longer, really. And so what is driving you to really to train and get increased fitness and your motivation for that? Well, that's why we say have some stepping stone events, because that's giving you a reason to train. But it's also more of a bit of a holistic view. Right? The thing that you do in the summer training makes you feel better because you're out on your bike, but it's all the endorphins that release and the way that you manage your stress, and gives you a something else to do in life other than work. Why wouldn't you want to carry that on in the winter? Because all those things that you need in the summer, with the exception of sunlight, are available in the winter. And a good training session or a half an hour run, 40-minute swim is going to give you and your body the endorphins that will make you feel a lot better about yourself. It'll help you maintain your mental health. It's really an important thing for you to carry on.
It is, because you never regret a training session that you've done. You regret the ones that you haven't done. We're building foundations, just like when we talk to our people that we're learning to swim. We might start off slowly because we're building the foundations. And unless you've got solid foundations, you're going to have a problem all the way through, because you're going to build something that's going to be shaky. And
but it's not foundations in terms of loads of base volume.
No, it's not.
It's things like for your health, your day-to-day activity, your longevity. Like the amount of studies that show the reason why people live longer in certain countries is because they're exercising all the time. Even if it's just gentle exercise, you are increasing your ability to live longer by doing something and exercising your cardiovascular system. Also, tissue resilience. So things like we do our big gear sessions or using the paddles. Weight resistance on the bike, or anything that's helping you build muscle mass or maintain muscle mass, particularly as you get older, particularly if you're a woman. As you get older, these are all things that are worth carrying on with, and then you are you're making yourself more resilient to the stuff that might happen to you in the summer, because you'll then be able to go and do harder sessions or longer sessions, because your body has spent the period over the winter consolidating and making itself a nice sturdy thing, a bit like a tree trunk.
Yeah.
You just fattening the middle bit out in the winter, and then in the summer, nice leaves come out as a result of more energy stored in your trunk. I'm not a biologist, so that could be nonsense, but I can't remember. It's 20 odd years since I did biology at school.
I never did that, Oliver, when I was at school, and that's a long time ago.
If I am wrong, I apologise to David Bellamy. But if somebody would like to educate me on that point, and if I'm wrong, let me know. Tell us Instagram us or message us. We'll let you know. And as Jacqui said earlier, it's a chance to focus a little bit on technique, or in the technique that we would have it. So, do your hands regularly cross in front of you when you're swimming, which causes you to fishtail down the lane. Okay, if that's so, spend some time with your eyes up, with you concentrating on your hands not crossing. So you're still doing your swimming sessions, but you're focusing on a simple thing you control. Yeah. Could you do big gear reps on the bike to build yourself some more...
A big engine.
More muscular strength and more muscular endurance, so that will increase your power output when it comes to the spring, and you can go outside, you'll be able to go harder for longer.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff, it feeds in. Is your bike position not quite right? Or did you buy yourself a TT bike and can't really sit in the TT position?
I think is very common.
In which case, get your TT position set up in the garage and get practice on it. Start holding yourself for a minute, build it up to 90 seconds and then then 30 seconds off, and build yourself up until you can sit in that TT position for the duration of your race, which by the end of the winter you might not be able to do.
But you'll be on the way.
Yes, you'll be well on the way to be able to take that to the outside and carry it on. And once to be fair, once you've sat in it for like an hour and a half, you can sit in it for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Not maybe an Ironman level, but I can certainly hold that. Once I'm holding it for an hour and a half, I can hold it for 2 hours, 3 hours on the bike for 70.3.
So that's something that you can work on. It's not all about being. It's about being smart, using your time wisely.
Like treadmills.
Yeah.
Using a treadmill, because you can get that. That'll help pick up your cadence while you're running. It'll also be softer than the ground that you're running on, because then it'll give you some feedback. So if you've got a new pair of shoes that you want to try, run on a treadmill first, because if you take them outside, you'll have a difficulty taking them back. And as someone who tried to resurrect a pair of Adidas Bostons from after the pandemic, yesterday when I went for a run on the treadmill just to give it one last chance, and my calves locked up after half an hour. Well, they're going unvinted now, because the carbon rods have completely knackered up what was a beautiful trainer. But I used the treadmill rather than going outside to run, because they weren't going to get mucky, essentially, which is difficult to clean. At least I can put them on as barely used and nearly new unvinted and get some of my money back.
Yeah.
Well, you could also practice things like skills. So, what do we mean by that? Well, I mean, transition stuff, but without it being a transition. So if you're getting on your turbo, why not practice swap it, like putting your shoes on, tightening them up and getting on your bike? Yeah. And then when you get off, how quickly can you get your shoes off? Because that's something that you can do every time you get on the bike in the winter, and it's a skill that you'll need when you get into summer.
And it's 3 minutes.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of free speed that you can earn, and it sounds absolutely really, really basic practice, putting your shoes on and off. But if you can put your shoes on and off quicker, because when you get into a race, because you know you can just slide onto them, or this is the tension that I need on them as we're going. Same with running shoes. Particularly if you're running inside, have your elastic laces put up, and how quickly can you slip into them without having to bend down and adjust the tongue?
Floor
yeah. Can you work out a way that you can make your trainers as easy to put on as possible? Because that might only save you 15, 20 seconds in the race, maybe longer over, depending on how tired you are. But you can practice that now, and the more you get into it, and it's not really any different from putting your trainers on, you're just putting them on in a different way. But it's practicing it in that way. Like, can you change a tyre?
No. I'm sad to say I can't do it. And my fingers, look, I can't do it. So
although that isn't training, you might think, okay, well, I've got a chance to train a tyre here. I mean, so if I get into a race, I've got some chance of being able to repair it, or puncture repair, or whatever it might be, which is another skill that you can work on for half an hour a week. Because half an hour a week over 6 months is going to mean that by the time you get round to race day or race season, and you're going out or even riding outside, you will be much better off, because you'll go out there with the skill knowing I can quickly change my tyre if in the event of a puncture, or I can fix this quickly enough so I can get somewhere home. I can get home and sort it out at home, or take it to a bike shop. Yeah,
we use analogies a lot. It's like a jigsaw. It's like putting all your pieces together in the right order and not missing a bit at sky off.
Yeah. And this is the whole point of like the off season, is just present you with a bit more flexibility than the race season, because you can spend more time with your family, you can spend more time focusing at work, you can spend more time doing these little odd bits, and it's all going to improve you, or at least maintain you. What you don't want to do is drop off, because some of your rivals will not be. They will be carrying on. So if you stop and then you've got to start again, and your rivals are carrying on, they're going to be in front of you before I've even started. And it's just maintaining it over a few hours over the winter.
So I think
that's really it, yeah. So if you are in the first two camps that we mentioned, where either you usually stop because you've burned yourself out in the summer, or you've burned everything around you to the ground, or you just can't be bothered because you don't see the benefit in it, hopefully the course of this
little conversation,
your podcast, will have made you realise that actually the off season is important for you, and it is something that you should do. And if you would like some help with online coaching, then there are probably very few coaches with as much on-deck experience as we have at fixing people's issues, and we are able to translate that online very effectively. Do drop us a message on Instagram, email, or on Facebook, and we will come back to you. But until next time, we'll see you.
Thank you for joining us today.
See you next time.
See you then. Or as we say in Yorkshire, Siddy.